Instead, it goes and now has the irrigation, which is going to make their farming better and keep them safe. So what people start realizing is that to keep the floodwaters from going over and being crazy and being dangerous, that they could build dams and channels to control the floods. So basically what happens is, so has anyone gone and filled a bathtub up? Has anyone filled a bathtub up? Alexander's shaking his head, yes.
My mom has.
Most of us have our permission. I was able to check. Yeah. Now, what happens, and if you don't have permission, have it off, but otherwise you're fine because you're not going to pop up anyways unless you speak into the mic. But anyways, has anyone overfilled the bathtub? No? Good, because that would make a huge mess. But think about the floods like a bathtub. You have your river as the bathtub, and the faucet is the rains melting from the Zagros Mountains, all that snow and all that water. Well, I bet if Adelina started overflowing her bathtub, what she would probably do, first thing is she'd grab a bucket to try to catch the water. And then she'd need another bucket, another bucket. Well, eventually, Karen would go to say, Adelina, what if we put a hose to go have it go into another bathtub? And that's kind of like what the irrigation is. It channels the water from overflowing from Adelina's bathtub to now going into another one. So this is how they're going to control their floods. And we can see in this top right picture and the bottom right picture, it's going to be man-made canals. And they're going to make these canals so that when water goes overflowing, it flows into those. But here is the awesome thing. You can start having that water, those canals, go perpendicular to each other. That means at, those right angles. And then what can you do better with that? What is that going to bring? That more water, you can have more places for what? For what? Donnie.
Farming.
Farming, exactly. So it extends the available land for farming. So this is going to be great. And where you really don't want water to go, you build a big dam, which is like a big wall to stop the water. So they go solve the problem of the flooding so that poor Zoe doesn't come home and see Veronica is washed away. She can go now and have Veronica safe in the house and have more land to farm. And this whole process is called irrigation. Irrigation is muy importante. You totally have to know what irrigation is. People are going to use irrigation still even today. So, I mean, it's a big deal. You got to know about irrigation. And like I said, your activity today is going to be doing a flip grid explaining how the people of Sumer solved this problem of flooding. Now, because they start using irrigation, we went and had this actually in our History Atlas activity that we did on Friday. Irrigation allows for more farmland. And that means more farmland means more food. And we're going to have a very, very important thing that I like to call the circle of awesome, okay? I know it's in your way for a second. I apologize. So I'm going to draw something called the circle of awesome, all right? Now, this is going to be extremely awesome, so brace yourselves for its awesomeness. We have a circle here. I know. Amazing. And we're going to start with more food. I know. And that more food is going to lead directly to more people. And if you're writing by hand, this is probably way easier for you, and you can make an even better circle of awesome. Now, I know it's completely perfectly round. It's not like strange, like egg-shaped and dented. So more food equals more people. Now, here's the thing. I am so lucky that I teach at Frederick Classical Charter School because I teach some of the most brilliant young individuals that Frederick County Public Schools has to offer. And there's this truth to it that when you look at percentages, there are some people that wind up popping up and being geniuses, right? Like our Albert Einsteins or Isaac Newtons or Shania Greens that are just so stinking smart. It's like, whoa, how did you get this smart? And it's just how it happens. So More food equals more people, which means more super smart people. The more smart people. I promise you, my penmanship with a pen is way better than my penmanship with this mouse. Some of you guys felt that way when you're doing the labeling and the coloring. Now, more smart people. Now, the nice thing about smart people is smart people typically invent and discover stuff. So that means more inventions and technology. More inventions. And like I said, I would love for you to make a circle of awesome in your notes. Hopefully that'll look a little bit better than mine. And a lot of those inventions wind up making it so we can have more food. So this is what I call, like I said, the circle of awesome. Oh, this would have been easier. Man, why wasn't I doing that the whole time? Goodness gracious. Good golly, Miss Molly. Oh, yeah, Senor Kenny. So we have the circle of awesome. And this circle of awesome is muy importante. It is a big, big deal because this circle of awesome is something we're going to see constantly through history. More food equals more people. And of course, you're always going to have that small percentage of people, our Albert Einsteins, our Isaac Newtons, our Karen Cabreras, that are going to be just so stinking smart that they're going to discover and figure something else out. All right. And then they make more inventions, which is eventually going to lead to more food. There's more people, more smart people, more inventions, more food, more people, more smart people. And we're going to see some variations of our circle of awesome, but the same idea is going to happen time and time and time again, which is great because we get great advancements. And because of like more food and more people, more smart people, now I have this cool, amazing, powerful computer in my pocket called the phone. Now, because of that circle of awesome, I have this beautiful ukulele, which I totally strummed the wrong chord. Oops. You know, all of these things, all this technology, the computers you're using is because we have more food. It's great. I love it. All right. That's the circle of awesome. I know you're super duper amazed with my artistic skills. I'll take autographs later. So, this irrigation, man-made canal system to water crops. All right, that's going to be the last bullet for this slide. Yes, which I already kind of said. Alex, don't fall asleep, broski. I'm tired too, man. No falling asleep. Or I'll send Isaiah to like jumper cable you. Oh, turned off his camera. How dastardly. Wow. Wow. Man. F minus minus that way. So Sumer is going to be the very first civilization we have in the region. Now, one of the things we need to realize, Sumer is not like a country. It's not a unified kingdom or anything like that. It's not an empire. Sumer is what we call a city-state. Now, what that means is each and every one of those cities, and Sumer is in this orange color here, Kish, Nippur, Lagash, Uruk, Eridu. Those are their own countries. They all have their own king. They have their own laws, their own traditions. However, they are going to speak the same language of all the other city-states there. They're going to have the same religion as all the other city-states there. They're going to have tons of similarities. This is going to be just like the Greeks later on, how Athens and Sparta and Corinth, they're all their own countries, their own kingdoms, but they are separate. But they have so many similarities together, and then why we just call them the Greeks. So we call these people the Sumerians because they have so many similarities, but they are just, you know, it's just a collection. It's because it's easier for us to talk about them as a whole, the people of Uruk and or Eridu or Kish, as opposed to, you know, we can just call them the Sumerians and talk about them all together. Like I said, these cities will share a language, they'll share religion, they're going to share a similar culture. So the idea of a city-state is going to be very important for us to know about too, because we're going to be talking about city-states all year. Before we have big countries like the United States, we have periods where things are just small little cities, but those cities are their own countries. Then eventually we get a conqueror like Riley coming around. Mr. Pepper goes and conquers a couple cities, and he's going to form the first empire. Then Ivan says, well, I don't want to be ruled by Riley P. So then he starts conquering places and makes his own empire. And that's just going to be how history goes. We'll get to empires next week. Oh boy. So you got to know about these city-states. These are what we believe the people of Sumer look like. Maybe not the giant painted on eyes, but we could see their clothing. We can go and see what some of their features look like. It's pretty interesting. And alas, we have but one more slide, my cherubs. One more slide. Social classes. Now, the rulers of Sumer were called priest kings. So what we believe how it went. We think in the beginning there was a priest or priestess in charge. So Khan was like, hey, I can talk to the gods, so you probably should make me the boss. And so people made Khan the boss because he could talk to the gods, and the whole idea was keep the gods happy. Because remember during our Do Now, Kirthana talked about how the Tigris and Euphrates rivers were unpredictable with their flooding. So Evelyn says, I bet if the gods are happy, they won't make the river flood and drown my family and destroy my crops. And so Jackie and Evelyn start going and making offerings to the gods. And Khan says, oh, yes, give me the offerings. I'll make sure the gods get it. Khan winds up getting rich in the process, becoming more and more powerful. And hopefully the rivers don't flood. And of course, when the rivers do flood, Khan would say, you didn't really give enough to the gods. You didn't go and worship them well enough. You didn't go and give your offerings to me, to the gods. And so eventually, though, our priest Khan says, you know what? I'm a priest king because I am the ruler, because everyone was going and looking to Khan. So Khan just makes it official and becomes a priest king. And the whole idea was Khan said he had a connection to the gods, and then he was able to go and take power. Now, we're going to look at how this wound up working. So we're going to have three main social groups within Sumerian society. And like I said, this is going to be the same throughout the different Sumerian city-states like Nippur and Uruk and Eridu. So the very top is going to, of course, be our priest kings. And then below them, with them, I should say, are going to be other priests, because Khan can't do all this priest business himself, especially now that he's the priest king. He's very, very busy. So he goes and gets Eker to be a priest for him, and Ivan, and they get some priestesses like Riley O'Donnell and Shania, and Alex becomes a priest. And they go and they start working and going and doing the religious rites for the people, because the people want, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers not to flood. They want rain to fall. They want all their plants to grow, those things like that. Then, of course, you need someone to do the paperwork. You need people who are educated. And that's going to be our scribes. Unlike in our society where everybody gets an education, in Sumerian society, only the rich and elite would get education. Very few people. And even out of the rich and the elite, very few people would get it. And they're going to be the scribes. They're going to be the only people who know how to write. So then, Evelyn and Eliza and Danny, they become scribes that they can write and keep track of records. And of course, they're going to get some tax money for that. Then, of course, at the very top, you need your warriors, because you want your warriors to be happy, because your warriors are the guys that have sharp, pointy things that can really ruin your day. So Khan makes sure, being the priest king, to have his warriors like Jason and Karen and Kirthana and Kadir, always happy, giving them things because he wants them happy, because he wants them to go, bash some skulls if people make him unhappy. And finally, all of your government officials. So we have our upper class, which is going to be those groups of people. Now, in the middle, we have our people that are going to be our producers, our artisans, our merchants. Farmers are also going to be, and fishers are going to be there too, because let's face it, we want to have food. This is going to by far be the largest class. I know this looks like a pyramid, but in reality, like if I'm going to go and show my beautiful artistic skills again, you guys are just like not going to believe how amazing this is going to be. So if we wanted to draw this to scale, I'll cover up that dude, since you probably have that. So if we're going to draw this to scale, so we're going to have like our middle block right here. All right, this is the middle. That'll be our top pot. And that's probably our bottom. Not a very good triangle, right? So when we make these social pyramids, we don't draw them to like population scale, but so that's the idea though. The middle is huge. And finally, the bottom are going to be people that are unfortunately enslaved, typically because of war. You know, we often now think of slavery as a racial kind of thing that people due to racism doing it, because that's how American slavery was. And American slavery is one of the worst forms of slavery that's ever existed in history. And most of history, it was more like, you know, Zoe's people battled someone and then those people lost. Things like that. But we're going to talk about all of those kind of things later on. So that is going to be our notes for the day, folks. Do we have any questions?